Hello, everyone, and welcome back to They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charlie Mann of law firm Alchemy. I'm talking with someone who I have known actually for, I don't know, maybe a decade at this point, having seen him back at some of the old Great Legal Marketing conferences, having seen him at the Business Black Ops events that past and future guest Dave Freeze runs as well. And it's going to be really cool to get his perspective in a true solo firm where he's done some really cool putting together of outside resources, some DIY, and building a cool firm where he's constructing steady growth over the years, kind of an interesting lifestyle practice, and in a practice area as well that we don't always talk about here on the show. There's bankruptcy involved, but I just can't wait to go ahead and get this discussion started. So I'm welcoming the founder of the Richardson Law Offices, Steve Richardson. Steve, great to have you here.
Great to be here, Charlie. Great to talk to you.
Oh man, I'm excited. So, because I do have a passion for the true solos out there. So I'm interested in your perspective and the answer to the opening question. What's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Well, Charlie, they don't teach you how to communicate with and persuade non-lawyers.
Oh, okay. All right. Break that down for me, Steve.
Okay. Well, you go to law school, and first year you take usually. I did back in the day, and I'm sure you still do, a class in legal research and writing. So they teach you how to do the legal research, look up the law, how to write a brief for a trial or a motion or something like that, and to argue the facts in the law. And usually there's some sort of moot court program in the school where they teach you oral argument, how to argue before a judge. And so they teach you how to communicate with a judge in legalese to convince him or her to rule in your favor, whether that's a motion or trial. But you go before a jury. Talking to a jury is very different than talking to a judge because you can't use legalese. You need to speak to them in a very different manner. So not having these communication and persuasion skills taught to you can make it difficult when you get out in the real world as a litigator to try and communicate with and convince a jury. And really beyond that, and there's a wider issue here, which is there's really not much difference between convincing a jury to rule in favor of your client and convincing someone to be your client. So this is the sort of thing that they don't teach you in law school that affects your work in your practice and on your practice.
Okay, so you dropped in at the end there, right? Exactly what I was so excited about, the convincing a jury, but also now this evolves into a marketing discussion. And since I know you're someone who loves digging into the marketing side of the practice, you are we'll call it student of the game, right? Of the marketing game. So for you in that learning persuasion, what was your journey moving from here's the very technical training I've received in law school to okay, I'm going to learn copywriting. I'm going to learn marketing messaging. And how has that evolved over time?
Well, I opened my practice back in 2000, the fall of 2000. And throughout my life, I'd really been a techno geek and that sort of thing. So even back in 2000, I had a website. I designed it myself with something called a Front Page, which was put out by Microsoft back in the day. But then I had a buddy of mine who I knew that did design, and he created a website for me. And it was really what, sadly, a lot of firms today have, which is nothing more than an electronic Yellow Pages ad. Instead of double trucking, you have all these pages on your website. And it really didn't make me any money.
Here's the great part. There are going to be a few people who listen to this. And when you said double truck ad, they're not going to know what that meant. They're going to own law firms, but they're not going to be familiar with a double truck Yellow Pages ad. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Well, for those listeners out there, double trucking is basically not having just a full page ad in the phone book, but on either side of the book as you open it, you have a left and a right full page ad. So that's all they had, and that's all I had. And then in 2010, I had a really bad February, and I said, 2008. I had a really bad February, and I said, I got to do something. I need another stream of income, another source of clients and marketing. I've got to do something with my website. My website is not making me money. It's out there. People can find it. They can learn about me, but it's not bringing in clients.
Yeah.
So I went to a seminar on online marketing and websites run by FindLaw. You and I know who FindLaw is. And I hired them, got a FindLaw website.
Oh boy.
And it made me money.
Yeah.
And it just, wow, I've got a new source of income. And they, over the first year, it made me money. I had a starter website. And I said, well, if this is making me money, an even bigger website will make me more money. So I went to a larger site. Well, the problem with FindLaw's business model is that it basically said, well, we'll take the design and everything cost and we'll spread it out over 12 months and you pay us a monthly fee. So, okay, I'm a smart guy. We got to the end of the 12 months. I said, so my monthly fee is going to drop a lot now that I paid for I'm just paying for maintenance now, not design, right? Well, and by then I had started blogging. I had a WordPress site that I had my blog, and I linked it to my domain through a subdomain, blog@richardsonlawoffices.com. And that's how I was getting content on there. But I said, well, how do I go in and add content myself? No answer. The best they could say is quote me like $1,500 a month to do it where they would do it. I'm like, no. How do I add content? How do I add video? How do I, all of this? And they didn't really have an answer. So I started searching around and found a company you and I are familiar with, Foster Web Marketing. I'm not sure where I first saw the advertisement, but I saw that that a college classmate of mine, Dave Fries, used them. So I said, great, I'll call him and find out more about Foster and what they do. So ultimately, I signed on with them. I launched my site in August of 2010. And it's on the journey. This was a very big shift in how I looked at marketing my firm. Yeah, I wanted content on there. Yeah, I wanted articles and everything for people to find. But in putting the site together, they said, do you have a book? I said, wait, what?
A book?
I have a what?
Me? A book?
And they explained it to me, and I put together a book on bankruptcy, and I started to learn about information-based direct marketing. Yeah. And lead magnets and hooks and things like that, and really opened me up into this whole new world of marketing that I learned from them. I then got involved in Great Legal Marketing, went to some of the summits, and then later joined. And that was sort of the start of my journey through all of this, and started and became a member of Dave Fries's marketing group. And you end up reading a lot of books, going a lot of webinars, learning all sorts of stuff. But that was really the beginning back in 2010.
So for people who are trying to figure out how to disengage the very technical type of writing they learned in law school and open their minds to this persuasive, sometimes conversational, even gasp, informal style of writing that it encompasses copywriting, what advice would you give to that individual?
Stop speaking in legalese. Get through your head. You're not talking to a judge. You're not talking to a lawyer. This is where your brain gets damaged in law school. You're so locked into this way of thinking and way of communicating. You need to use their words. All right. For example, in my bankruptcy practice, I'll use the word discharge of debt, but I'll also say wipe out your debt, get rid of your debt. Because I have an FAQ on my website. What is a bankruptcy discharge? But if they don't read that, they're not going to know what the heck a discharge is necessarily, or how that helps them. And you really have to learn what their words are and use their words. Start talking to people as you interview them. What brought you here today? What has you concerned? And start writing down their words and use their words and speak with emotion. And informally with emotion, because Charlie, as you know, people make decisions emotionally, and justify them logically.
100%.
So stop using logic to convince people and persuade people. Use emotion. Just think about the husband that buys this expensive new item that he's just got to have, and then listen to him justify the purchase to his wife.
Stop calling me out about my 3D printer, Steve.
So that, and you start seeing logic. Well, honey, look, look what I can do with my 3D printer. Look at
Oh, yeah. Look at all these household organizing things that I'm printing off.
There's a guy named Dave Sparks who's a big podcaster and tech guy in the Mac and Apple world. And that's exactly what he does. He has a 3D printer and he creates these customized drawer organizers.
Yep. There you go.
Exactly the justification. So people justify their decisions through logic, but they decide through emotion. So you need to speak to their emotions, speak to their pain. Okay. There is, I don't know where I heard it first. It might have been at a Foster seminar. You say, you point out the pain, you make the pain worse, you talk about your solution, you talk about the benefits of your solution, and most importantly, the benefits of your solution. So what I mean by that is, when you talk about the benefits, okay, well, I'm a bankruptcy attorney. I'm going to wipe out all your debt. Okay. But then you talk about the benefits of that. And you say, and there's some very powerful words that you can use. Mm-hmm. Discover how you can. Imagine this. It's like saying, don't think of the color red. Well, as soon as you say that, all you're going to think about is the color red.
That's right.
If you say imagine being able to go on vacation with your family, even if it's just, a getaway weekend, long weekend at the Jersey Shore or someplace. Imagine being able to do that. Imagine being able to open your mail again, answer the phone without your heart rate going up. Right? These are the benefits benefit of a bankruptcy discharge that speak more towards what those people were experiencing before they found you, before they used your solution, and now they're getting better. And look at, when talking about speaking to the emotion, look at Apple. Apple's a great example. They're phenomenal marketers, okay? They don't just talk the new iPhone event. They don't just talk about, they do. They talk about the specs, we
Sure.
have a greater optical zoom. We have this additional lens. They show you pictures, beautiful pictures. Look at the pictures you can take. Look at the wonderful video you can do and how you can edit it easily and their oohs and ahs. You can talk as much as you want about how thin your laptop is, but when Steve Jobs pulled a MacBook Air out of a memo envelope, that was powerful. And that's the kind of speaking to emotion kind of marketing that you need to do in order to persuade someone to hire you as their attorney.
Yeah, and that's an area that I know a lot of attorneys you speak of logic and emotion, right? They have the ability to look at this concept logically and understand, yes, I get it, the idea of emotion. We can even often create very quickly recognition for themselves of a recent purchase they've made of of an emotional quality. I like to joke, Steve, that people who say that they only make logical decisions are doing so to have emotional superiority over others, right? They're doing it because that sense of superiority, they go, I'm logical. I only make logical decisions. Well, the reason you say you make logical decisions is it makes you feel good to believe you're that type of person. So I don't know about that. But with the attorneys, right, it's then taking that idea of emotion and actually infusing that in your copy. You mentioned using words like discover, words like imagine. If they're digging into, let's say they're creating a landing page, and let's keep it even really simple, right? It doesn't even have to be a book offer page, but I love that. And I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit because it doesn't get discussed as often as it used. I mean, Steve, you and I have been around this sort of law firm success and support space long enough that this used to be very frequently discussed. And now it's not really talked about as much. So I actually think it's a hidden advantage for firm owners. But when they've got just a practice area page, right? What would be, if you were auditing someone's practice area page and trying to get them to put emotion into it, what cues or clues are you looking for to evaluate that page and to suggest how to put emotion into it?
Well, I think that you need to take a closer. You're describing this practice area. This is the service that you are providing. Okay, well, we've gotten to step 3. Point out the pain, make the pain worse, and the third is describe your services. So, okay, so this is your solution that you're talking about on your landing page. So then you need to go to the benefits. My practice, I do bankruptcy. I can wipe out your debt. I can help you to save for retirement, that sort of thing. But then go on and talk about the emotional aspects of it, the benefits of the benefits. And you also need to create a sense of urgency. It's, step 2, and it's kind of cynically put, and that's why I wanted to circle back to it. Make the pain worse. And that's not to torture someone and really, make them feel guilty about their 3D printer. But the point is, you can't wait any longer. Yeah, you may have sort of accustomed yourself to the pain, or you've reached a certain tolerance, and maybe you don't have to deal with it right now. But but by making the pain worse, you are creating that sense of urgency and saying, look, this can get even worse. You think it's bad now with your debt? Wait till creditors start getting judgments against you. Wait till they start levying on your bank accounts and making your check for the mortgage bounce, or garnishing your wages, and now you can't afford to pay your bills because the creditor's taking a big bite out of it.
There we go.
Believe me, it can get worse. Don't wait. I do that in my bankruptcy practice. I do that with my collection defense and student loan practice, where I'm helping people to deal with when they're being sued for a defaulted student loan, or just a generally large debt that they're facing, that don't think it can't get any worse, because it can. And speaking to that pain and making it worse and creating that sense of urgency so that they take action sooner. And I think those are the things right off that I would look at in a landing page.
You used an interesting word in there that I'm going to highlight real quick to make a point, which is speaking to someone's pain. And I found that one of the best ways to get this type of copy down is, and I think people could literally hear you, Steve, that passion that comes out the moment that you're talking about the additional risk. And I'm so glad that you talked about aggravating the pain, because that's definitely an area where you and I both know law firm owners will pull their punches on aggravating the pain, because that feels, like you said, it's like torturing someone. The way to do it is, if you are a law firm owner who has trouble getting to that point, you need to speak it out loud. You need to record it, because anytime that I ask a firm owner, and I'm sure this happens with you as well, Steve, when you work with firm owners, is you ask them about, like, why should someone hire you? And then you say, okay, well, that sounds good, but like, why that? Like, what's the real risk for them? And they get animated and they start talking about, like, oh my God, they have to hire us or else these 18 things are going to go wrong. And you immediately look over at their marketing and go, you understand that you said in your marketing, you said one of those 18 things, even though there are 18 risks for your client or your potential client. Are you afraid to tell them about that? Isn't it almost malpractice to not warn them about what could happen? And that's speaking it out loud. It's amazing. It's amazing what a difference that it makes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that idea of the information offer, right? Something that information-based direct marketing doesn't get talked about as much. Even on this podcast, hasn't been talked about with tremendous frequency. So give listeners an overview of what that looks like in your practice.
Well, it's information-based marketing. Excuse me. Marketer Dan Kennedy talks about the moving parade of interest. And attorneys need to understand that when they're marketing, that and in the age of Google and the internet, that they may not be ready to hire you yet.
Right.
And as I'm sure you saw when you were with Ben Glass Law, that there would be people that would be in your system for months before they actually call you. So you have to understand and get out of this mindset of the only thing you want them to do is call us now for a free
Right.
consultation or whatever it is, whatever that hook is. They may not be ready for it yet.
Right.
People, if they're injured, they're looking to find out, how do I get my treatment paid for? I've been in an auto accident. How do I deal with the adjuster? How do I get them to pay for my treatment? That's what they're interested in early on, and you have that opportunity to educate them.
Right.
And you get them earlier before they're even looking for an attorney. Because the problem is there's such a commoditization of lawyers. And you mentioned, that USP, why they should hire you as opposed to someone else, because what you don't want them to do is be saying, bankruptcy lawyers near me.
Yep.
Well, all they're looking for is someone nearby. Well, there are a lot of attorneys nearby. Now, how do you compete with that? Well, you compete by having searchable and highly optimized content on your website that answers questions that they may have way before they finally decide they've got to contact a bankruptcy attorney.
Yeah.
And if they find you, and more importantly, raise their hand to get more information so that you can they get into your system and you start marketing to them. Because now you're sort of putting it out there and hoping people will read it and be convinced. But once they read it, and they may not call you and say, I want to hire you, or can I set up a consultation? But they may download a book or a free report or a video or that sort of thing. Now you have their name and email address. Now you can send them more targeted information to their situation, maybe in some sort of upsell and then a bifurcated offer. But you need to get them earlier on in the moving parade of interest, because then you're building authority. And authority is so important when it comes to your USP. You want people to realize you're the guy before they need the guy.
That's right. And you build a big old list, right? And I know that's something that you've done, is you've built a list that you regularly talk to via email. Talk a little bit about that list. Why should a firm be building and nurturing a list?
Well, not only for they get that list, they have people they can talk to, and the list is so important, especially under the rules of professional conduct that lawyers have, where even now that we're allowed to advertise, I think when I first started practicing law, that was extremely limited. But there are only certain things you can do if they haven't contacted you first. So if they reach out to you, if they raise their hand, even if it's just to download one of your books, they have now given you permission to market to them, to talk to them. And you want to nurture them along, because as you build that list, you're able to stay top of mind. I was with a firm where years and years they had a free legal hotline, and you could call. It was horrible. It was an invitation to malpractice, and I hated it. You could call 24 hours a day, and it was through call forward. You'd call this number, and you'd get call this number, and if no one's there, try this number. And you're being woken up at 2:00 in the morning and being asked legal questions. But even during the day, you'd get a call put through in a consultation, and you'll take notes. And then that form would go to somebody, and they'd send out what was called a friendly letter, which is basically to cover their butts on malpractice, saying, hey, treat this with a grain of salt. I only spent a little bit of time with you. You really need a full-on consultation or something more. You get the idea.
Yeah.
But that was it. It got put in a file folder, and that was it. And the owner's rationale was, if you give them this consult for free, when they have a case, they'll call you. No, they won't. They'll forget you 3 days after the call. They don't remember. I've talked to people. Well, I talked to an attorney. Went, well, who'd you talk to? I don't remember.
Yeah.
And you're losing such a huge opportunity by having that person and just sending them an e-newsletter or sending them just interesting stuff. Or, I know I talked to you the other day about such and such, but you might want to know this or that, or have you thought about this other thing? Or maybe you didn't have this question when we talked, but here's a question I get asked a lot, and here's the answer.
Yeah.
So it is a huge resource having that list, and to build authority, to be there, be in front of them when they're ready to hire a lawyer. They're not going to forget about you if they're like this old firm. If you're constantly and regularly sending them information, reaching out to them, and they're remembering. And they'll not only maybe hire you themselves or refer somebody else. They may not have a case.
Yeah.
But, oh, yeah, you got student loans. You got to talk to this guy. He's great. You know, I was able to work it out myself for mine, but you might want to talk to him. So then by extension, you get referral sources as well.
Yep. And you can't, exactly what you said, Steve, you cannot rely on someone's memory on this. It is incumbent on you as a firm owner to stay in touch, to nurture that relationship. And of course, the great thing is with something like email or print newsletter, and I'm a big and person, right? You have the ability to broadcast out consistently, and at least with email, at very low expense. There is no excuse to not have this practice, this regular practice within your law firm. Now, an interesting thing here, Steve, is this is an important note. You are, and I love this, you are a DIY person, right? And you even mentioned you're starting to set up your website. Now, you also assemble really smart tools and systems to make the DIYing really stop becoming just DIYing. But how do you deal with this output of marketing while still balancing the practicing of the law?
Well, part of it is I'm knowledgeable in advanced arithmetic.
Okay.
Most lawyers think that 1 + 1 = 2. But 1 + 1 actually equals 3 or 4 or 5. Okay. Because you can repurpose what you do. If you write an article for your website, great, you have an article, but you also have a script for a video. You also have content for an email and an email campaign. You also have a social media post. Now, you might need to tweak it a little bit and repurpose it for the particular platform that you're using or particular use, but most of the work has already been done. When I wrote my first book, and I mean book, it was called Hitting the Financial Reset Button, and it was a guide to getting a fresh start through New Jersey bankruptcy, about 150 pages. But what I did was I went through my website, and I basically cut and pasted all of these articles into Word, then moved them around, reformatted them because they're no longer interlinked articles on a website. They're a cohesive text in a book. But I was able to write that a lot faster and get it out to people faster because I had already done most of the work. And by realizing that 1 + 1 = 3, you're able to do a lot more with a lot less. And also automation. There's so many things that can be done with automation. Not only with it triggers things automatically. For example, when a call comes in and I'm not able to speak to them for whatever reason, I use a service called Call Ruby, and they say, "Oh, well, Mr. Richardson isn't available right now," but they have a landing page on my website that is not indexed, but they have the URL and they pull it up and it has instructions and it has a contact form, and they fill out the contact form with their name, their email address, their phone number, what area of the law they're calling on. And then it hits save. That drops directly into my content CRM. It sends out a 0-day email customized to what they're calling about. "I'm sorry I couldn't take your call. I will get back to you as soon as I can."
Nice.
But while you're waiting for my call, here's some more information on,
good.
That might answer some of your questions, that might help you to understand until I can get back to you. So
I love this.
It's not, they may be less likely to call the next person per se because they couldn't talk to me, but they got a response immediately with all sorts of information. If I have someone that contacts me and reaches out to me and they're not a good fit because they're not in my practice area, or it just doesn't make sense that they're not an avatar client, I tag them in the CRM. It automatically sends out a declination email. So I don't have to call them. I don't have to write a custom email. I just tag it and the system sends it out. And they're very nice. Sorry, I can't help you. If I happen to know people that I can refer them to, I do. But through that automation, you get a lot more done in a lot less time.
That's something, honestly, Steve, looking at the entire conversation that we've had here, one thing that I have loved throughout this, and I want to emphasize for every listener, is what we've talked about is stuff that really grew throughout the 2010s in terms of knowledge, implementation, etc. But over the last 5 years, haven't been discussed quite as much. And I mean, look, we can partially look towards the pandemic and all the discussion of pivoting and a lot of panic going on. But there's been a degree of loss in the power of automation and trying to get that in place. Now, I'm a huge fan of also the unautomated marketing touches as well. But that gem that you put in there, Steve, about having an automated email go out when someone gets dropped in from the CRM from Call Ruby, that's pure gold. And it's the type of thing that doesn't get set up nearly as often as it used to be set up. Mm-hmm. So you're an example of someone also who's very additive. I've watched you continually add to your marketing machine over time, as opposed to feeling like you need to subtract in order to add. Because of automation, you've got, 39 things that are working together instead of only having 5 things that you're constantly replacing. And I want everyone to know the power of what you are doing there. That's, that's a difference maker, right? So before I have you plug and we do the last question, I do have one more question tucked in with here, which is, as an additive person, when you're looking towards the next 1 or 2 years, we obviously have AI involved in the equation. What's something that you're looking to add to your marketing and persuasion stack over the next couple of years?
Well, partly with automation and 1 + 1 = 3, one of the things I've started doing, in addition to AI and ChatGPT, in crafting and just a quick sideline on AI, it's how you ask the question and learning how to ask and give prompts that really get you quality response, and understanding that's just the first step. ChatGPT will write something for you, but now you have to add the special sauce. You have to really craft it and take it to the next level. But it saves you all sorts of time of sitting there in front of that blank screen trying to, how do I get started? How do I organize it? How do I this, that, and the other thing? ChatGPT or some other, like Claude or some other platform, AI platform, can do that for you and get you started. But also, what I'm doing now with a lot of my videos is I'm using a transcription platform to transcribe the audio, and then take that and you maybe then put it, paste that into ChatGPT and say, all right, here's an audio from a video. I want you to reformat it with paragraph breaks, headers and subheaders, using this particular voice or approach, and then it spits it out, and then you put the special sauce. But the steps that you've skipped and were able to skip in that, and you're not starting all over again. You're not doing it all over again. You already have a transcript of what you said. You then have to put it into a different medium, like I talked before. Now we're talking print, not video or audio. So you need to redo it. ChatGPT can help you get to skip that initial step of trying to rewrite it yourself. So all you're doing is polishing it. So those tools can save you so much time. And why AI, you can't turn on the TV or read an article or whatever without somebody talking about AI, because it's really the next wave, and attorneys need to take advantage. Don't write your legal briefs with it.
Correct.
Okay. But your marketing copy and everything else, for those, I don't have the time to work on my practice. Use ChatGPT, and AI helps you to find the time and reduce the time.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, before we get to the final trio question, If people want to connect with you, learn more from you, learn about you, where should we send them to?
Well, there's my website, stephenjrichardson.com, with a lot of articles. And it's my blog and information on marketing your your law firm, whether you're a solo or a small firm. The idea is, if you're going to walk through a minefield, walk behind somebody.
Yeah.
I'm a solo. I've done it. Don't save yourself some time, and I'll help you skip some steps.
There you go.
There's my book, Getting Off the Hamster Wheel, and that deals with marketing systems, time management, things like that. You can go to hamsterwheel.stephenjrichardson.com to get a copy. There's my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Stephen Richardson. You can get all sorts of information there as well, or Steve at stephenjrichardson.com.
Awesome. All right, Steve, last little question for you. What are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
I'm reading a book by Dan Kennedy on pricing.
Oh, No BS Pricing Guide?
Pricing strategy? Pricing guide. It is transformative. I think every lawyer should read it. I talk to so many lawyers who are afraid to raise their prices and are therefore struggling to make money.
Yep.
And it allows you to make more money from the clients you already have and make each new client more valuable. I'm also reading Atomic Habits.
Great choice.
And I'm as far as podcasts, I'm listening to this one, The World of Marketing with Foster Web Marketing, some other technical podcasts, Mac Power Users, because I'm an Apple guy. But I've learned so much from just that platform and technology and automation. And it's not about the law or the practice of law or marketing, but it has taught me so many things that I've been able to use in my practice.
That's fantastic. And then so podcasts, watching these days?
I don't know that what I watch is more for leisure than anything else.
Great. Me too.
Yeah, we're one of these days we got to call the cable company and cut the cord, but
it'll happen.
All of the stuff is streaming now, so it makes entertainment a lot easier. It's imagining what you can learn. I sit and eat lunch and watch YouTube videos. I mean, it seems kind of frivolous, but and YouTube has become to a great extent the National Enquirer as far as all these channels that can throw a lot of garbage at you.
That's okay.
But there's all sorts of things you can learn about all sorts of subjects with these short videos on YouTube.
Fantastic. Steve, my friend, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your wisdom, your insight, your expertise, and bringing that true solo perspective and the DIY perspective. It's so valuable for all those listeners who are trying to figure out, how do I balance that time? What are some good strategies? I think we've given a great core education here on that marketing front. So Steve, thank you so much.
Good to be here.
And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach Us in Law School.